Right now, think about this. There are roughly 4.9 billion people on this planet just glued to their screens, sharing, scrolling, performing. But amidst all that deafening digital noise, there's a quiet, almost invisible rebellion going on. Today in this explainer, we're diving into the radical act of staying offline and the genuinely fascinating psychology behind folks who simply do not share their lives on social media. I mean, have you ever noticed that? How some people literally never post their life online? Picture this. You're at this gorgeous location, the sun is setting, it's absolutely perfect, and almost instantly, everyone in the room instinctively pulls out their phones. But there's that one person, right? Just standing there, hands in their pockets, actually watching the sky with their own two eyes. No selfies, no updates, just being there. And you kind of have to wonder, why? Society so often gets these silent observers completely wrong. We tend to assume, oh, they're hiding, or maybe they're just shy, antisocial, or maybe a bit insecure. But actually, scratch that. Psychological research paints a totally different picture. Their silence, it's not a weakness at all. It's actually hiding a profound, deeply rooted psychological strength. Here's how it works. Most social media posting is driven by extrinsic motivation. Psychologists call this impression management. It's basically the act of seeking out those external dopamine hits, the likes, the comments, that sweet audience approval. But non-posters, they operate on a whole different wavelength. They possess what's called an internal locus of evaluation. In plain English, that means they judge their own value from the inside out. They have incredibly high self-concept clarity. Because they already know their worth, they just don't feel the need to put on a performance for an audience to feel seen. And by staying offline, they are actively sidestepping a massive pitfall. Social comparison theory. That's that psychological trap where you're constantly measuring your own everyday, messy reality against the highly curated, beautifully filtered highlight reels of everybody else. It's exhausting, right? A landmark study out of the University of Pennsylvania actually showed that limiting social media use significantly drops depression and loneliness. So people who step back entirely, they tend to have higher emotional intelligence and way lower anxiety. They're protecting their mental peace by simply opting out of this totally unwinnable digital illusion. To really put this into perspective, let's look at the number 38. The average person spends over 2.5 hours a day on social media. Do the math, and that adds up to 38 full days a year. 38 days! Just scrolling through other people's lives. Think about that for a second. Non-posters are reclaiming 38 days of their lives every single year. That's time used to actually build their lives, to create, or to just exist, without an audience constantly grading their performance. Way back in the 19th century, the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard famously warned that, quote, "the crowd is untruth." Long before the internet was even a spark of an idea, thinkers like Kierkegaard and Albert Camus were already warning us about losing our true selves to the masses. And today, that crowd is the algorithm. Refusing to play along in the modern attention economy is honestly a genuine form of modern-day activism. It's like a digital strike, a way to preserve your individuality away from a system literally designed to profit off your insecurities. And this brings us to something super interesting known as the photographer's paradox. Think about how we capture memories nowadays. You spend a few minutes experiencing a genuine, beautiful moment, but within seconds, you feel this overwhelming urge to document it. And right then, in that ongoing moment, your brain shifts gears. It goes from being present to becoming a performer. You start thinking about the lighting, the angles, what the caption's going to be. The tragic result of all this? Forever after, you have a significantly weakened connection to the actual memory itself. You weren't in presence mode, you were in performance mode. Non-posters, meanwhile, they're out there building actual memories, not just content. Which leads to another massive psychological benefit. Constantly posting creates what's called a crystallized identity. You basically build this rigid, brand-like online persona, and if you ever deviate from it, your audience gets confused. It's exactly why A-list actors like Scarlett Johansson or Jennifer Lawrence actively avoid social media. They need their identities to remain adaptable. Non-posters get to maintain a fluid identity. They get to be multidimensional, real-world humans who can change, grow, and evolve without being pigeonholed as a digital product. Ultimately, these individuals embody the traits of what you might call the lone wolf. But don't get it twisted. They aren't withdrawn. In fact, they possess immense emotional maturity. They are highly selective and incredibly discerning with their energy. They prioritize deep, three-dimensional connections over having, hundreds of shallow acquaintances they haven't actually spoken to in a decade. They actively protect their nervous system boundaries from the constant, exhausting onslaught of digital noise. And by keeping their energy contained like that, they make their real-world presence incredibly potent. Which brings us to our final takeaway. Not everyone who is silent is missing out. Actually, some are simply living more. Keeping your moments private might just be the ultimate act of psychological self-preservation in this hyper-connected world of ours. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question to ask yourself. Are you using the screen, or is the screen using you? Thanks for joining us today, and hey, maybe today is the day you choose to just leave your phone in your pocket.